So I was driving, not watching the draft. I had no idea what was going on. I was just kind of listening to some country music driving home. My phone starts blowing up. Like, just, I have so many texts, so many phone calls. Like, and I'm like, did someone die? Like, I'm like, why is my phone blowing up? My head coach calls me, John, and he goes, I know you're driving home, but he's like, I have news. And I was like, what? Like, what's going on? He goes, you've been drafted. And I immediately pulled the car over and I started crying.
Welcome back to Athletics Check Podcast. I'm Johnny Stanton. This is Travis Reeves. Say hi, Travis.
Hi, Travis.
Hey, Travis. Welcome to episode 8, the Jaycie Johnson episode.
Cool.
Now, Jaycie is a longtime friend of mine. We went to college together over at the University of Nebraska. Go Huskers. I was only there for 2 years, so I don't really claim them necessarily. But it was very cool for me to see my fellow teammates and classmates and friends.
Huskers, if you will.
And fellow Huskers, yeah. Go on to success. And Jaycie had a successful soccer career and continues to have one in coaching. To the point where actually I got to go with Jaycie to her hometown, which was very close to the University of Nebraska, just in like northern Missouri, I think, near Kansas City, to go to a KC sporting event. It was just the men's team at that point. But she got awarded an award during that event. She's basically like a hometown hero. Like for their local area, she's like the one who made it, and it was very cool to experience that. She got to go on the field and got halftime awarded
key to the city,
basically,
cutting a banner, balloon drop,
pretty much, the rafter jersey into the rafters, all that cool stuff. Not really, but I was curious.
I wish soccer stadiums hung jerseys like open air, like a laundry line.
Do they not?
I'm not the person to ask about that.
I feel like Premier League probably does that, or at least maybe they do like the NFL where it's like Ring of Honor kind of thing.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. That makes more sense.
But what I wanted to ask you was, we talked about hometown heroes.
Yes.
Like for me, my high school hometown hero was Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer went to but it's tough because Carson Palmer went to school there in early 2000s.
Sure.
And then Klay Thompson goes there. So there's some athletes that went to Santa Margarita, and now I thought that I was a success. My best friend and best man, River Craycraft, is still killing it in the NFL.
Hell yeah!
He surpassed my touchdown numbers. I think he has 3 now.
I think he does have 3.
But I was curious, who was your hometown hero from high school, or just where you grew up, or whatever?
Hometown hero
doesn't have to be sports, I guess. We're kind of specifically sports.
That's good because it's not. Walnut Creek.
I bet it. I believe it.
If there is, where are they? There's another one. I'll kill them. Concord area, and if we're talking high school, Walnut Creek, California, Los Lomas High School.
Okay.
Without a doubt. Kyle Gass, member of Tenacious D.
Oh, cool.
100%. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, without a doubt. Outside of that, bunch of fuck ups, I guess. bunch of mid-ass, just cogs in the machine.
I don't know. Walnut Creek
myself included.
It's a cool area up there, right? I think I've been there once.
Oopsie. Yeah, East Bay's great. It's it's living in this little bowl surrounded by Mount Diablo. Yeah. It's a very chill area.
What was your high school mascot?
Knights.
The Knights.
Yeah,
that's pretty basic.
Hey, what was yours?
Eagles. Pretty basic as well. I mean, one of the local high schools was the Mission Viejo Diablos.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty good. We had a bit with the middle school, though. They were the Squires. There was some linearity.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that was nice. The area was nice.
I went to elementary and middle school at a place called St. Catharines, which were the Seahawks. They just ripped off the Seattle logo, and then we became Eagles. So I was a Seagull.
Dumb.
It was dumb.
Across town at Northgate High School, that is where some of the Workaholics guys are from.
Yeah.
So big comedy contingent from the East Bay, and from Northgate also somebody that I played music with, this guy named Callan Capner, who played bass in a band called The Story So Far, and now runs his own studio up here in Pasadena.
Nice.
Yeah, a lot of art stuff.
Yeah.
Most of the exports from our high school area would go to Santa Cruz or SF State. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
a bunch of nerds up there.
A lot of art. A lot of art trash came out of my
Sure.
school.
I'm still thinking about the workaholics guys. I met what was it, long-haired one's name?
Blake went to Northgate. Yeah,
yes,
that's
cool.
him.
I got to meet him.
Huge
during-
Warriors A's fan.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I got to meet him at the layover in Houston or Dallas. I forget which.
Is that
for my
on an layover? Or is that a place called the layover?
No. It was on a layover to my bachelor party in Austin. And I'm like, hey, I recognize that he's a very recognizable guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, normally I don't want to bother people at the airport. We live in LA. Like
Sure.
we see
Yeah.
people plenty. You know, the unwritten rules. You're not supposed to really bother them.
Yeah.
But I'm like, this is my bachelor party. I'm gonna say what's up. This weekend's about me.
I mean, it's almost like, based off of the public perception of him, that would be like the Pope of Bachelor energy to before you go on.
He did. He pulled out his holy water and gave
Yeah,
me
it's
Sign
just
across.
Jameson is
We were at like a tequila bar in this airport.
hell yeah.
So it could have easily been done. Yeah. You know who didn't peak in high school was Jaycie Johnson. And we're gonna get to Jaycie's interview right about right about now. Jaycie, thanks so much for being on the show. I knew you when you were Jaycie Johnson. You are very recently Jaycie Ackerman. Congratulations on I'm sure, beautiful wedding. How you feeling coming off of that?
Thank you. First off, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of this. It feels weird. It hasn't really fully hit me that I'm married, and that
Sure, I get
I'm
that.
like going through not like an identity crisis, but like my last name is now changing to someone
Yeah.
else's. But I'm very excited. I love my husband, so I guess I will take his name.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'm happy that our wedding day was finally here. We were engaged for 2+ years. So
Oh, wow.
there was a long build up to the big day, and I'm happy that it went perfect, and now we're past it and I can move forward and now focus on my job and like life now.
Yeah, when you're in the world of sports, scheduling a wedding can be tough. There's like whole parts of the year that's just like, even if it's like the best possible time, like, you know, you obviously want it to try to be somewhere between spring and fall so that the
Yes.
weather is nice. But there are just huge swaths of that just are not available for a wedding. I know Maddie and I were trying to figure out, well, you know, you can't do the fall, obviously, because football season.
Yep.
You can't really do most of the spring because of football. And the summer isn't great because there's football.
Yes.
So was that what it was like for you?
Yeah. So when I was playing, I only had November, December, January off. And so
Yeah.
that's just 3 months that you have to choose from. And then now being a coach, those were kind of like the same months I had off was December and January. So I'm like, all right, this is just gonna be a winter wedding and we're going for it. So
I think that's fun because it allows people to all be in the same place. Like my wedding got completely rained out, and it was like
Wow.
it was like the early spring, and it was right around the same time where California was having these like incredibly like heavy rains and flooding, and we ended up having to change our plan a little bit and have everything be inside. And it ended up being the best possible situation because everybody was all around each other at all times. There weren't people like, you know, having little like cliques going off, and everybody was just surrounding with each other and being on the dance floor all at the same time. So I'm sure you guys had a similar situation.
very similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know that I in the intro will have explained all of your incredible accolades, including your record-breaking freshman year,
Oh my gosh.
scoring 4 goals in a playoff game, which has to be one of the greatest feelings. Like I've never scored 4 times in a game, I don't think. Not at the college level, that's for sure. And I'm sure that you still like have that feeling deep within you that you're trying to access every once in a while, because I know I do.
Yes, it does come out every once in a while for sure. It definitely is a feeling that you'll never be able to describe.
Yeah.
Especially with me being a freshman and doing that in the Big Ten and in the NCAA. So that's something I do cherish dearly
Absolutely.
to my heart.
So obviously, star striker at University of Nebraska Lincoln, where we were friends. I
Yes,
was at
we were.
University of Nebraska for 2 years. Came in the same recruiting class. You were a 4-star recruit. I was just some kid from California trying to play quarterback over there and failing horribly.
No.
But you also, like myself, had a few run-ins with some knee tears.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about that a little bit more later. I'm sure. But again, this is all, I'm sure the listeners have heard this all already, but North Carolina Courage, Seattle Reign FC, Kansas City Current, you being a Kansas City girl getting to play. I'm sure you've done a million podcasts about like, how was it like playing soccer in your hometown? We can get to that in a moment. But now a college soccer coach once at Kansas, University of Kansas Jayhawks, now at Kansas State, assistant coach. It seemed like you're just climbing the ladder. You're going to be a head coach in Division I program at some point soon, I hope.
I would love nothing more, but this is not where I've envisioned my life going and taking me, but I will take it. And I'm very, very thankful for the situations that I've been put into.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you go through college sports, there's such a wide range of experiences that you can have. And for me, college football wasn't like this amazing experience where I got to, be a 4-year starter or get to have like a one school that I was surrounding myself with and have this like really intense alma mater feel that like I'm just going to support, year after year after year. Like I was between Nebraska. I went to UNLV for my graduation or to graduate. I went to Saddleback College, junior college there for a little while. But you got to be at Nebraska for all 4 years. But and you grew up a Nebraska fan.
I did, yes.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about that? And like, you growing up in the Kansas City area, obviously there's a lot of schools in that area. How did you end up choosing Lincoln?
Yeah, there is a lot of schools within like a radius of Kansas City where I grew up. When I was little, a couple of girls that were from Kansas City that were older than me went to Nebraska, and like I idolized them growing up. And so the fact that they went there, I was like, okay, maybe I can see if it's a good fit for me, being a little 8-year-old, not knowing anything in life. And I went up to Lincoln for a camp. As colleges, like now they're like called ID camps. Way back when we were going through the process, it was just like a camp, just like a summer camp. Come see the campus, meet some of the players, meet the coach. And so I asked my mom if I could go. I went and I immediately just fell in love. It was like love at first sight. I loved the city. I loved the campus. And like most of all, I really loved the head coach, John Walker, who's actually still the head coach at Nebraska. Wow. So when I was 8 years old, that's like when I knew, I was like, this is the place that I want to have my future. This is where I want to continue growing and playing and just see like where life takes me. So instead of like being a little girl playing soccer, like dreaming of like North Carolina, Virginia, UCLA, USC, I wanted to stay smack dab in the middle of the country and kind of just start my story and my experience at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln.
Yeah. Well, what was it like when you did finally kind of branch out from the Midwest towards North Carolina and towards Seattle? What was that like was there a little bit of culture shock there? Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was your first time not living in the Midwest, right?
Yes, it was my first time when I got drafted in my senior year of college. It was my first time moving out of the Midwest. But with like growing up with club soccer, I had traveled so much that I think I went to like almost 35 different states growing up. So like I was aware of like other parts of the country, but actually being fully submerged and like living in a different city that is not Missouri, Kansas, or Nebraska was a little bit of like a shock, but it was a great shock that like gave me a whole different perspective of life and just like other, not cultures, but like just other cities of like what they have to offer and bring and like new things that I can learn and experience. So like I loved being able to move out of my comfort zone and get into somewhere, an area that I'm not familiar with, and be able to meet new people and experience new things. So like thankfully with playing, I got to experience the West Coast and the East Coast. So I'm very thankful for that. I loved my time in both Raleigh, North Carolina, and then Seattle, Washington. Loved it, but now I found myself back in the Midwest.
Where you belong, I think.
This is like the Midwest is my home. This is like where I have so many ties, my family, so many just like friendships that I've built in the Midwest. So, but I loved being able to experience something other than the Midwest.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, soccer has this like incredibly huge part of your life, your heart, like your whole identity, just as, football has always been for me. But the point of the show isn't for athletes to be able to talk about sports. It's to be able to talk about everything else that you're passionate about. I like to say that nerdy is just a synonym for passionate, and people can be passionate about a lot of different things. So that there's this great mix, I think, that most athletes have. I think most people have, that have the jock world. I think jock is, this term that hasn't necessarily, been in style recently, but it's the binary that nerd kind of goes up against and has like this competitive relationship with.
Yes.
But I think a jock nerd is like the perfect combination.
It is, because they get both sides. If you
absolutely.
If it's like separated, like David versus Goliath, it's like you get both sides of it.
Yes. Why can't we all just be friends and be jock nerds together?
It's not like it's not that hard to just like accept other people's like likes and what they enjoy and like what you enjoy. Like you can embrace it. Like that's one thing I've learned when I've gotten older is like I feel like I was just so closed off to like my own little world, and like meeting so many new and different people and experience different things that like allows you to just absorb so much more than like what you ever thought like was possible.
This episode is brought to you by Hero Forge Custom Miniatures. Hero Forge is a free-to-use online character design application that basically means if you want to play a TTRPG and you want to have a 3D printed miniature of your character, Hero Forge is the place to go. You can print them at home, you can print them there, and they will ship them to you. They are always incredibly crafted and designed, and the print process is so exact. It's really impressive. Every time I get to see one of these miniatures, their character design and customization is second to none. You get to 3D model your mini right there on screen, and you can see it as it real time. Updates to any kind of customization you want. Their facial customization is super impressive. Make sure that you go to heroforge.com to design your custom miniature today, and always check back regularly because they always come back with the coolest updates. They have new content every week, whether it's a new piece of clothing, a new race, whatever you can imagine, you can make it on heroforge.com. So go to heroforge.com today to start designing your own custom miniature. What's up, guys? It's Johnny again. I just wanted to thank you for listening and to encourage you to join our Patreon at patreon.com/athletics-check-pod. You'll have access to all of the little mini adventures that I run for each and every guest. This is about 10 to 15 minutes where I run them through a short TTRPG adventure. And for a lot of these people, especially the athletes, it's their first time running a game like this. So it's my honor to get to be their very first game master. And one of the best parts about being a paid member of the Athletics Check Podcast Patreon is that you get a chance of having your name shouted out in the middle of an episode. People like Andy Chang, Camilla, Francis Xavier Lally, John Guillaume, Jamie Bellin, Will, Zachary Loradich, Ladarius Smith, and Daniel Siuba. Thank you so much for being paid members. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. Let's get back to the action. So with all that being said, what would you say your nerd to jock ratio is? I think a great goal, and it's not necessarily correct or like if you're not this, then you need to work to being 50-50. But I think a great goal is being 50% jock, 50% nerd. I think that I do whatever I can to be able to kind of split that, not in just like time spent, which isn't necessarily always, doable, but kind of just within your own passion, within your own like life identity. How would you compare your ratio of jock to nerd?
I think definitely right now, like where my life is, I think I'm 60-40, but I think when I like was playing, I was like probably 70-30.
Sure.
So like now that I'm retired and kind of removed from like that daily grind of like, I have to go to workouts, I have to do this, I have to do that. And now I'm like on the coaching side of things to where it's a little bit different priorities. I can like kind of reflect more on life and things and choices that I make to where like I feel like I'm more balanced. But when I was a pro athlete, I was very like,
you have to be.
Yeah. So now that I'm like retired and removed, I feel like I have more balance in my life. But when I was a pro, there was no balance at all.
How much of that, like gaining of that balance and being able to kind of go a little bit closer to that 50-50, and, coaching in itself is just inherently more nerdy than being an athlete on the field.
It
Yes.
is, and I love it.
Yeah, it's like just you get to be so much more cerebral about it because you're not
Yes.
using so much more of your brain of like just reacting and just instinct on the field. Because if you're thinking, you're dead on the field. But it's when you're on the sideline, you actually have to be a little more cerebral about it and really think about it. But outside of the coaching strategy of it all, how much of that nerdiness that you've been able to find balance in your life comes through food? Because I know that you're a big foodie.
I would say like a good chunk of it comes from that.
Yeah.
I like from getting married, wedding registry, all of that. I like me and my husband like put certain things on there because we're like, we want to be able to make food. Like we want to do this. Like we enjoy like spending time together, like by cooking or like finding new recipes to like make. And like he's not a picky eater. So like
Okay.
I'm the picky eater of the family because I just don't like certain things. Like he just does not like mushrooms or tomatoes really. And
Yeah.
like I'm just a little more pickier with like I'm just like picky with certain like taste buds. I don't know. But so like
Sure.
it's fun for us to like pick recipes and look up stuff. And like we got like some cookbooks over like through our wedding registry and like stuff like that. So like I have nerded out so much over like food. And like when I plan like recruiting trips, I'm like, okay, like where do I want to stay in the city that I'm going? Like what type of food is around me? Like I'm a big donut person. I love donuts. I have a big sweet treat. So like I plan trips sometimes around like certain donut locations and like researching that beforehand and like seeing what is around me so I can see like what cute little hometown like donut shop they have that I can go to and like eat it and like or like Mexican restaurants. I'm a big chips and salsa girl. So like I have now kind of planned my life around food.
I love that. I think that's, when I get to travel anywhere, the first thing I think about is obviously like hotels. But next thing I think about is what reservations I got to make. I just recently got to travel to Europe before Christmas to go visit some Christmas markets in Switzerland and France. And we got our first experience of going to a Michelin star restaurant in France. And it was the coolest experience because that's the height of nerdiness with food. Like they're so intentional with every word on the menu and every like gram of seasoning and whatever in their food that it's like like they are passionate to the nth degree. Have you ever had like can you think of one experience when going out to eat that it's just like that is like the pinnacle of being nerdy about food?
Oh my gosh. You're really making me think. When I lived in Seattle and I played in Seattle, like Seattle has such a great food hub to where they have so many different just parts of Seattle that have different options that you can pick from. There's an Italian place in the river market or the city market called the Pink Door. And just the whole ambiance of it is just out of this world. Like they have shows going on, like people hanging down from the ceilings, like just everything about it. And then like looking at the food menu, it's kind of like a Michelin star, but like not like a couple steps down. But like I just like that is one of the things I will never forget in my entire life. It's like my experience that I had going to that restaurant because it's like a speakeasy door. The door's hidden. You kind of have to find it. And then like you go in and then like you're just transversed into like a whole different world.
There's something about the speakeasy experience that is just, I wish that I could have that in my daily life. Like I know there's something special about like, okay, it's a night out and I heard about this place. You have to walk through a refrigerator door and then knock 3 times to be able to like find this right spot. And there's something about that. It's just like, I strive for that, like as much as possible. Like it's a combination of like finding the hidden gem as well as having this curated experience.
Yes. And that place was that for me. And like, I will never forget my experience there. Like it was just took me to a different universe. Like I did not want to leave. I was just having the best time taking everything in that place had to offer. It was amazing. That's probably like mine and the States. So
I know that obviously, as you mentioned, you are a huge donut person. I also know that you're a huge pizza person and that it kind of goes up between the two. You can't really decide which food is your favorite. But I know personally that when I was in Cleveland, I had my pizza spot and I had my donut spot. The pizza spot was Saucy Brew Works, which basically was the bottom floor of my apartment building was basically Saucy Brew Works. And it was so easy. It's super dangerous. And it had great beer. And it was like, I'm a professional athlete. I shouldn't be having this food right now. And then I got to give the shout out to the Pippins who own Brew Nuts, donuts and beer in Cleveland. It is like people literally do pilgrimages to this place and they rotate their menu. It's like themed. They had a Taylor Swift menu at some point last year.
Oh, I'm here for that.
Like, you talk about intentionality. These people are like so intentional and they know everybody in the restaurant at all times. And not only are they a donut place that, stays open early in the morning, but then on Friday and Saturday nights, they stay open late for the, like, they're a bar as well. Oh. It's the coolest place ever. So I know that you can think of at least one or two donut places or pizza places that you have been regular at in the cities that you've lived in.
Yeah. So Kansas City and Lincoln has the same place that I grew up going to. It's Lamar's Donuts.
Okay. I feel like I remember Lamar's when I was in Lincoln.
It was like right off of campus, over by like the gas station off of like R Street or whatever. It was like right off campus. And then Lincoln later on got Hertz Donuts, which is a 24-hour donut place. And me and my husband actually frequented there often, like when we were just friends in college, like we were best friends. And like we would just go there all the time. Or like after my knee surgeries, he would bring me donuts as like a pick-me-up. So Lamar's and Hertz Donuts were like my go-to in Nebraska and in KC. When I moved out to North Carolina, there's a little cute place called Duck Donuts, and they serve them to you hot. So like they're cake donuts, but like
perfect.
They're hot. They glaze them, then you take them. So like it's just like a warm, like fluffy bite. And oh my god,
just a hug from the inside.
No, it kind of is. I have to give a huge shout out to one of my former teammates, Ashley Hatch. She's the one who introduced me to it, and
awesome.
I went there an ungodly amount of times when I lived there. It was like 10 minutes from where we lived, and it was like on our way to the practice facility. So I was like, after practice, I need a donut. So that was like not ideal either, being a professional athlete. But, and then in Seattle, there was just so many donut places that like I hopped around.
I mean, it's coffee city, and obviously if you're gonna have coffee, you have to have a donut.
So like I didn't have a favorite place there. I would just wherever we were getting coffee at, I was getting a donut. So like I just like wherever I was at, whatever the closest place was, that's where I was going. So I enjoyed all of the donuts in Seattle. So
any pizza places stick out?
Okay, I'm blanking on the name, but there's one in Lincoln, Nebraska that it's probably the best pizza I've had in like the United States. My husband's actually gonna be so mad that I can't think of the name of this because like almost every time.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Anytime we go back to Lincoln, Nebraska, we get this pizza, and we get pepperoni cream cheese pizza, and it's life changing.
Wow.
Like it's my favorite pizza. Like anywhere I can go, I want to get that pizza. But there's only one place, and it's in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I can't think of the name of it, and I'm really disappointed in myself right now.
I do remember when I was in Lincoln, there was one place, and the go-to order was having tater tots on your pizza because it was like super customizable.
It's really good though. The tater tot pizza
was really good. I mean,
really good.
Tater tots are just delicious. Yeah,
you can never go wrong with potatoes.
Of course. Well, if you remember it, we'll definitely put it in the show notes because I want to make sure you give shout outs to your favorite places, unless you want to gatekeep them and make sure that like they're still like hidden gems.
I wouldn't mind gatekeeping this pizza place because it's always busy when we go, and it's like a 30-minute wait. So like, I wouldn't mind gatekeeping it, but I do want to give them a shout out because we frequent there anytime we go back to Lincoln. So
now, what about cooking? What's your what do you get excited about to cook? And what's the new gift registry things that you're excited to be able to use, like a pasta maker or air fryer?
I was gonna say I go through phases, but my best friend got me a dual air fryer.
Oh, perfect! That's a gift friend right there.
Oh, yes, we've been friends since we were like 8, so she knows me really well. I literally screamed when I opened that present and it was a dual air fryer. I was so pumped. I was like, let's go. This is going to be used. But one of the newest gifts that we got is one of those Ninja Creamies that you can like
Okay.
make ice cream recipes out of. I haven't opened it up yet because we just moved to Manhattan. So like I haven't been able to like actually dive into everything, but I'm really pumped to use that.
For
But
those of you who are not Big 12 connoisseurs, Manhattan, Kansas.
oh, yes, sorry, Manhattan, Kansas.
Not New York City.
The little apple. We are in the middle of the country, in the middle of Kansas.
Yes, just making sure that was clear.
Yeah, but I've been on like a big like loaded mac and cheese kick lately.
Nice.
Just making homemade mac and cheese. Like my husband has a Traeger, so smoking the mac and cheese on the
There
Traeger
you
and
go.
like big like putting burnt ends in it or like pulled pork or just any type of like fun little twist like lobster, shrimp. That's kind of been like my big kick is loaded mac and cheese that I've just
Nice.
been like craving that nonstop.
We could talk about food for hours, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
But I want to talk about a little bit something a little bit more that it's something you're nerdy about, I imagine, but not by choice. It's something that you probably know more about than anybody who doesn't have a medical degree, and that's knee surgeries. Tell me, so I know you've had 3 ACL tears on the same knee and a meniscus tear on that knee. I had my ACL in senior of high school, my left knee, and I tore my meniscus as well, but I never had anything after that. I had a little bit of an LCL, like partial tear, but no surgery. But you had 3 season-ending surgeries on the same knee. And I know, for those of you who have never done this before, obviously ACL is a debilitating injury for an athlete. You can't really compete without an ACL in your knee. You can walk around in life and not have an ACL built up, or you've had scar tissue build up around it, but ACL will just like it'll finish your season. And it's happened to you 3 times. And I'm sure that's something that you have had to struggle with, just that continual risk.
Yes. I actually had a 4th surgery. It wasn't my ACL.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It wasn't my ACL, thank God. But I had a 4th surgery, and that was why I retired. Because I just mentally and physically I couldn't do it anymore. After having potentially 5 knee surgeries on one leg, it was time to like reevaluate my life choices and like my life expectancy and like happiness of like functioning. And I want to have kids. So yeah, I have unfortunately experienced 3 ACL surgeries. Not ideal as being an athlete. My first one happened in college at Nebraska. We were playing Penn State, and it was my junior year.
Was it a home or away game?
It was home.
Okay, that's good.
We were winning 1-0. I assisted Caroline Flynn. She scored, so we were winning 1-0. It was in the first half. Maybe 20 minutes into the game, and I was shielding a ball to go out of bounds for a corner kick. And unfortunately, one of the Penn State defenders kicked right through my right leg that was planted, shielding the ball. And like immediately I went down.
So contact injury.
Yeah, it was all of my knee surgeries have been because of contact.
Wow.
So that's
just unlucky. There's nothing you can do about that.
That's really another unfortunate aspect of it all. It wasn't like personally me like planting, jumping, landing. All of mine were contact.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, she kicked me. I went down. I was immediately like in pain. I tried to stand back up and my leg gave out and I collapsed. And I was like, okay, something's not right.
Right.
So they did the ACL testing and I didn't have an endpoint, so I had to get an MRI. I unfortunately tore my ACL and I had a grade 2 MCL sprain. So,
which is like a partial tear pretty much, right?
Yeah, it was a partial tear. I didn't have to get it surgically repaired. I had to wait 4.5 weeks and do like prehab to like get it healed, and then I had my ACL surgery. So
it always is wild to me the amount of time that some people have to wait for their ACLs, because mine was a week later. when I think, I don't know what it was about the swelling or what, like there was no prehab. It was just, let's get you under the knife as quickly as possible.
I envy you on that. But no, I had to wait 4.5 weeks. I had to like rehab my MCL, and then I just did a whole bunch of like just prehab stuff for getting ready for surgery. My first ACL, I was scarred after like I like went through the surgery and I woke up. I was terrified to bend my knee. I was like, we are gonna rip something. I'm gonna tear something. Like I had to battle with that. Like my trainer, my mom, and my doctor were all like, we'll have to put you back under and we're gonna have to bend it ourselves. Like if you want to get back to playing soccer, you have to bend it, or we're gonna have to put you under and bend it ourselves.
Wow.
And like that just
Because
literally
there's a couple of weeks there where you're supposed to keep it at like 180 degrees or as close to it as possible.
Yeah.
And then, you're trying to get as close to 90 degrees as possible. And you want to have that flexion under the care of a physical therapist.
Yeah.
But that's just that's not where your mind was.
No, I like was refusing to bend it. And my mom's like, do you want to continue playing? Like, do you want to get back to playing? I'm like, yeah. She goes, you have to do this or it's going to be like a worse process than what it already is.
You mentioned your mom, and I just want to say, I asked Jaycie before the recording started how her mom was, because Susie is one of my favorite people of all time, and she is just one of the kindest, most energetic people. And just shout out to Mama Susie.
She's the best. She literally has taken care of me after all 3 of my ACL surgeries. But so she was like, okay, we're gonna have to bend it. So like she helped me bend it. She's also a nurse. So like that helped a lot too, having like her medical background throughout all of my surgeries. So I finally got over the hump of like being terrified to bend my knee. I got through my process. Everything was great. I got cleared. I made it through my whole senior year of soccer at Nebraska. I was entering the draft to play professionally in the NWSL, the women's league here in America. About maybe 2 months before the draft, I was practicing with Nebraska, just getting ready, keeping like my fitness and everything ready for getting drafted and going pro. The last like 3 minutes of an inter squad, a ball comes into me, my back's to goal, the goalkeeper comes out and just like clobbers me, and immediately I hear a snap and I like black out. I black out. I'm screaming. I'm in so much pain. Like,
did this one hurt way more than the first one?
Oh my God, it hurt way more because I did more this time.
Yeah.
So I tore my ACL again. I tore both my meniscuses, and then I had cartilage damage to where they had to do an Oates procedure to repair my cartilage. So this one was, thankfully, this one I didn't have to wait as long to get surgery. I think I had to wait 10 days, and then they got me in and got my surgery taken care of. For this one, this was a little, what?
I was just going to say, this is something that obviously didn't happen in a game, and also at a time that you, like, this was in all preparation, not for a team that you were on anymore, and not from somebody that was even your teammate, or maybe it was technically, maybe former teammate, but this is something that you were just trying to ready yourself for the next level.
Yes.
And that had to have this whole other level to it.
Honestly, I felt like I just saw like my dreams flash before my eyes. Like they just disappeared. Knowing like the draft was January 14th, I had my surgery December 15th. And so like I was crushed. I was just like, it was in a very emotional time because also throughout this process, I got called into a national team camp. And I wasn't able to attend it because I just had gotten surgery. So like that also was just something that really crushed me because like the national team's like what everyone strives to achieve and to be on at that level.
And the level that you were at, your senior year, you were an All-American.
Yeah.
And you had a legitimate chance of being on one of those national teams.
Yeah. And like I had a great season coming back from my ACL. And then having the senior
year. Which is
year,
a huge accomplishment in itself.
Yeah,
like usually it takes a little, you were like Adrian Peterson out there, just like coming off the ACL, just at the top level.
Yeah. So like that, I was on such a high after coming back from my ACL, having like the senior year I did, having that type of injury, and then going into the draft, like I was projected to get drafted in the first or second round.
Yeah.
So then like having this injury and then having the national team camp call up and then not being able to attend, it was just, I felt like my whole world just crashed and
Yeah.
burned. And like, I know that's very dramatic and I know it wasn't,
No,
but
it
at the
absolutely
time
is true.
that was
Yeah.
like my whole world. And so I was just like so emotional. Like my mom came up and like was taking care of me after surgery because it was also during like winter break, classes were done, like no one was in Lincoln, so like my mom just came up and stayed with me. And like I remember when I got that phone call, she had to take the phone call for me because I burst
Yeah.
into tears. Like I was
Wow.
crying and I just could not stop crying. And so she had to like deal with it for me and like had to call my head coach at Nebraska, John, and like he had to help deal with things because I was just like very distraught and like emotionally
Yeah.
just like spent because this was probably a week after my surgery. And so like I still was like non-weight bearing. Couldn't bend my knee past 90. Like I was rehabbing actually both my knees because they cut into my left knee to take my patellar tendon to repair my ACL on my right knee.
I was
So,
going to
like,
ask because the process that I went through was like, it's pretty simple. It's a simple decision that, to be able to replace that ligament, you have to pull from a tendon or you have to pull from something else in your body,
Yes.
unless you want to go with a cadaver or something, which is a whole nother process. But usually you just pull from your patellar tendon, the middle, like third, basically, you kind of cut it out and then replace it and run it through and secure it there.
Yep.
But for the second one, you don't have that patellar tendon space in your bad knee. So then you need to either pull, and that, sometimes they even pull like from your hamstring tendon and shorten it. But now the spot there is too large for the hamstring tendon because then you have to loop it together so many times that there's not enough spot. Like, so all of that to say, you need to have surgery on both knees for your second one.
Yes. Yeah. So I was rehabbing both of my knees.
Yeah.
For my whole second ACL, which it kind of made it nice that I didn't have to focus on one leg. And like I could balance out everything. So like I did enjoy that, but like at the beginning I hated it because I was just like, I'm in pain with both of my legs. So, but ironically, the draft comes around, I get drafted.
Right.
And I was actually driving home to Kansas City. I watched the first 2 rounds of the draft and I was like, okay, because I had a lot of friends entering it and I wanted to see like where my friends are going and congratulate them and like support them.
But that had to have been such an emotional feeling that day. How long was that? The first 2 rounds? Was it a full day? Was it 2 days?
Our draft is one whole day because like we don't have a lot of people that go in the draft, so like they can bang it out in one day. So I was very emotional watching the first 2 rounds, but I was also really happy for my friends that were able to like experience the draft in the way that they were able to experience it. But I turned it off and I stopped watching and I drove home to Kansas City because I was flying out to California to actually go to the All-American banquet since I was an All-American. So I was driving, not watching the draft. I had no idea what was going on. I was just kind of listening to some country music driving home. My phone starts blowing up, like just, I have so many texts, so many phone calls, like, and I'm like, did someone die? Like, I'm like, why is my phone blowing up? My head coach calls me, John, and he goes, I know you're driving home, but he's like, I have news. And I was like, what? Like, what's going on? He goes, you've been drafted. And I immediately pulled the car over and I started crying.
Oh my gosh.
I was just like, so emotional that even with tearing my ACL a second time, a team wanted to take a chance on me. A team like saw something in me and like valued what I brought to soccer. And I just like was emotionally just because I didn't think it was going to happen. I didn't think I was going to get drafted.
Yeah.
I was just emotionally spent is a great word to put it. I was just done.
Just immediate depletion. Because I think it's so interesting because when going through the ACL process, you kind of learn like, okay, well, women's soccer is one of the most like common sports to actually have that injury because especially because it's if you're very quad dominant like soccer players are, it's more common to have that injury. And just for something about the women's anatomy, it just causes ACLs to happen even more frequently than men's soccer. And obviously those teams have had that experience of having players that have gone through ACLs
Yeah.
And so like logically, it's like, yeah, we know Jaycie's going to get better from this, but the emotional side of it is completely different. Like you just went through an even harder situation than you did the first time.
Yeah.
And you think like, I remember when I broke my ankle, I'm like, I just got on this team. I'm a rookie. Like this was my opportunity to be able to make a team, and now it's ruined.
Yes.
And then you know, a year later, I'm back on the team because of the team takes that chance on you. It's like injuries happen. Like that's logically you can think about like injuries happen, and the talented people will still be talented after that.
Yes.
But that's not what your brain's telling you that whole time. It's telling you the opposite.
Oh my God, yes. Like I was just emotionally like, what is going on? Like I felt like numb at that point.
Yeah.
So I found out like I'm probably an hour and a half away from Kansas City when this happened. So like I had to pull over, like compose myself.
I mean, you were lucky that you were in a place with cellular service, to be completely honest.
That's also just so true that like I had already passed all the dead zones to where I had no cell service to where I was okay. But yeah, so I was so emotional. Got the phone call. I got drafted. Like the ownership, the head coach, everyone called me like later on, like congratulating me, saying like they knew my situation, because I also had to call every professional coach and tell them, hi, I just tore my ACL.
Yeah.
Just a heads up, if you want not to draft me, like this is my situation.
What if you just kept it secret the whole time?
Right. Oh my God. Contemplated that, but I knew that was not the right thing to do. But so like the fact that they knew my situation already, having like the head coach tell me, he's like, we know, like we saw you come back your senior year. He's like, we can only imagine what you'll do now at this next level, like with all like everything that we'll be able to offer. So like,
I mean, if you don't have that senior year coming off your ACL, like obviously having the big final year of your college career is what sets you up in the first place to get drafted. But even more so, seeing you bounce back from that is, I'm sure, instilled a lot of confidence in a team to want to draft you.
Yeah, I think that definitely like helped my case, them being able to see like I did tear my ACL my junior year, and then the senior year I had coming back from that ACL tear. Like I think that gave a lot of people like just like okay, she's okay. Like she knows what she's doing. She can get back to the level that she needs to get back at. So I think that really did help my case, like my rehab process and like my showing my senior year. I think that definitely did help me be able to get drafted. So I'm very thankful for that. But then I just like, then I was like, okay, I have a whole new life throughout this rehab now. Cause I was just like going through rehab, I was just kind of like, I don't know like what I'm rehabbing for. Like I needed an ankle. Like obviously I was rehabbing to be just healthy again. But like for me, I just needed something to grab onto to be like, okay, I need to work every day for an ankle. And like this gave me my ankle that, okay, I'm working to become a professional athlete. Like I have what I need. And like after that, I hit the ground running. Like I was running back on the ground at 11 weeks post-op after after being non-weight bearing for 7 weeks. Like I like just cruised through my rehab process. So like I'm honestly very thankful that I did get drafted, because I don't think I would have had a professional career after that. Just being honest.
I mean, a lot of people, you know, what I've learned since leaving the league is that not everybody gets physical therapy after a big injury or surgery like that. And it becomes debilitating to an extent for the rest of your life. So who knows if you didn't get drafted that you would even have gone through that whole process. Maybe, you know, some part of you is like, man, what am I doing this for? And you finish your therapy early, or you don't have that same motivation to get back to running as quickly as, you know, you otherwise would have.
Yeah. So very thankful for that. I unfortunately did miss like my whole rookie season, but I still got to be a part of like the team. And that's when I moved to North Carolina, and I got to live in Raleigh and be around the girls. And like, it was just such a fun experience to like be able to be at that level and see the training and like the dedication that everyone puts into that. It kind of just like gave me a whole new perspective of like what I kind of already knew, but like I actually did get to physically experience it firsthand. I'm like, okay, this is the life that I do want to live. This is like what I do want to do, and I can do it. So
were you at every practice when you were out for injury?
Yeah. So thankfully, the North Carolina Courage let me graduate. So I got to
Oh,
stay.
cool.
I got to stay in Lincoln until May. I graduated like May 5th. I moved May 7th to North Carolina. So then once I was there, yep, I was at every practice,
And when does that season start?
So back then it kind of changed a little bit. The seasons, I wanted to say, started in like January, February, and then like
Gotcha.
went
Okay,
into
so
like
you were
October.
gone until you graduated, and then
Yeah.
you joined the team in like the middle of the season or something.
Yeah, pretty much. And
Gotcha.
then like ironically they won like the NWSL Shield that year. Like we were champions.
Wow.
So like it was really fun to be able to be
And
a
you were
part
part of that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I had a blast. Like I was so thankful I got to be part of it. That team was a workhorse. Like just every little detail, they crushed it, and it was just they were very professional. It was really fun to like be a part of that group because the girls were amazing, and I'm really thankful that was my first year in the league, and that's what I got to experience.
Right. You know, when I had my injuries, that's when I realized I dove even deeper into my other passions. Like that's when I discovered like Dungeons and Dragons. That's when I discovered stuff like comics and my friends that were in that same hobby. Was there anything that you found yourself diving more into during these periods of injury? Or was it something that was just like, I am so focused on getting back that nothing else matters to me?
I was very focused, but like I kind of just dove into like how the body moves and like works and like that type of aspect. So like it still was tailored to like recovery, but like I kind of like got into like a lot of yoga and like movement and flow and like just kind of like recovery, like foods to eat for recovery aspects. And like that's kind of like I dived more into like the recovery side of things and like how to like treat your body and like
Does it say
how,
donuts are the best way to recover as quickly as possible?
yeah, kind of. That still will never, ever leave my arsenal. That will forever. I will die on that hill.
I mean, you need, like, people don't realize that it takes a lot of calories to heal.
Oh
Like,
my God,
you know,
it
obviously
does. Like,
you're trying to, like, but you do need those carbs and fats to be able to
yeah,
make sure that it's
no,
going
you
in
do.
correctly. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
people do not understand like the amount of like protein and like food intake that you do have to take while going through recovery because your body is going through trauma.
It's rebuilding itself. Yeah.
Yes. So that's kind of like something I really like dove into like during all of like my recoveries was like, okay, how does my body move now? How does my body feel like with this? So that was like my kind of nerd out moment is like diving into like yoga, flow, stretching, what am I putting into my body? Like, and then that's kind of when my love of food also like broadened its horizons into where I was like, okay, what can I cook? Like what different recipes, like what can I add and like take out? So that's kind of what I started focusing on in a lot of my free time.
Yeah. And then can you tell us a quick, you know, version of the story of your third or your other knee injuries?
So this would have been 2 years after my second one. I would have moved to now Seattle. So I'm on the other side of the country. And this was during our preseason. It was like a week before our first game. It was in practice. And we were scrimmaging. A ball came out to me. And like I was settling it on my chest. And I was turning out away from pressure. And I unfortunately got stepped on. My right leg got stepped on. It was planted in turf. And so when I turned, my leg did not move.
Yeah.
I heard a pop. And I was like, okay, been down this road before. I went and got an MRI. I partially tore my ACL. So I didn't fully tear it. It was partially torn, hanging on by threads. And
but it completely healed before that. Because a lot of people I've heard, like they re-injure because it didn't take.
Yeah, no, mine completely was healed. Like I was great. Being in turf, cleats, and someone stepping on my foot and I'm turning the other way, like
there's a big conversation about having turf fields in the NFL right now and how many injuries are happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was one of those turf injuries, and I had options to either do surgery or potentially rehab it for 4 months and see if I can avoid surgery. Yeah. And at that time I was like, I'm avoiding surgery. I was like, I don't want to go through a third knee surgery in 4 years. So I was like, that just sounds like my nightmare right now, and I don't want to do that. So my physicians at Seattle came up with like a whole program for me to do. I went through the 4 months, and thankfully I was able to continue playing without surgery.
Wow.
So I got taken off the IR and I was put back onto like the squad, and I played in like our last like 4 games. I got like 20 to 15 minutes, like just little stuff.
Yeah.
Then I went through like our whole off season with a partially torn ACL. I had to be very diligent in my training and like everything I was doing. Like that was kind of like the hardest I've ever had to focus on, like just making sure I was doing everything I needed to do to
Right.
prepare for my next season. Next season rolls around. I'm doing okay. I get into like a tackle at practice and it just kind of like irritates it a little bit.
Mm.
And like I'm kind of starting to like be in more and more pain each and every day and like waking up like my knees giving out, locking out, all of that. We're playing.
Did you ever play with a brace?
In college I did. After college I was like, I refuse to wear this. I did not like it. It just caused me so many problems. So I was just like, and
It's
you can
just
also,
it's invasive for like your normal feeling.
it really is. And like you can also tear your ACL in a brace. So I was like,
absolutely.
it doesn't really
It doesn't do
prevent me
anything
from
for
tearing
twisting.
it. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm not going to wear it. And so like my trainers were like nice. They're like, it's your decision. Like, we're not going to force you to do it. But I'm like, great. I'm not going to do it. So I didn't wear a brace. Whatever. I was playing. We were playing Chicago and I got into a big tackle. And like, after that tackle, I was like, okay, something's not right. Like, I didn't, like, it just did not feel good. And so, like, I finished the game out and, like, I had to do supplemental fitness because obviously I wasn't able to play as many minutes. Like, I needed to keep my fitness up and, like, trying to do my fitness, I was in so much pain. Like, I just, like, trying to walk and run was just not ideal after, like, my adrenaline wore off.
Right.
So we get back to Seattle. I go get my MRI and I don't have an ACL.
Yeah.
It's completely gone.
Your body had just absorbed it.
Yeah, you can't find it on my MRI.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it's just nowhere.
You're just playing without an ACL for that much time.
So I lasted a year with no ACL / a partially torn ACL functioning. Wow. I don't know how I did that in a professional environment. I really don't, but like, pat on the back for me for doing that.
Yeah.
So I don't have an ACL, so surgery time. I did not want them to take from my hamstring or my quad. I was just like, I'm going to take cadavers because with this surgery, they were going to make me be out a full year anyways. So I'm like, okay, give me the cadavers. Like, it takes almost 12 to 16 months for them to even like fully like take and like whatever. So I was like, you know what? We're not going to take anything else from my body. I'm going to take cadavers.
Because a lot of that rehab process is actually recovering from that tendon being severed. Exactly. Like you're trying to build up your patellar tendon and your quad strength because that patellar tendon has been cut into rather than the actual ACL, being reconstructed.
Exactly. So I was like, you know what? No, I'm like, I'm going to take cadavers at this point. I'm over it. So going into my surgery, I tore my ACL, did both of my meniscus, and then I had cartilage damage again. And then on top of that, they added in a second ACL in a sense, like a support ligament called the ALL, and it like runs across the front of your knee, and it's just like a backup ACL in a sense. Medical terms, sorry, not the best at like.
So now you're a cyborg and you're like even stronger than you were before.
Kind of. So I go through my process, crush it. Like, it was the easiest recovery I've ever had because I've already done it twice before. So I was like, this is a breeze. Like, my mom also flew out to Seattle and stayed with me for 2 weeks in Seattle. So she had a grand old time with that. But so got through that. And then Kansas City gets a team. I come home. I get to play in front of my home team, my family, my friends, my little nieces who are like the cutest little things. Got to come to like all of my games. They got to meet all of my teammates and like just be a part of it, which was like something I will forever be like thankful for and cherish.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in practice again, I get into a tackle.
Yeah.
I tear my meniscus and I have cartilage damage.
Jeez.
And so then I get my last surgery and I was just like mentally like going through that recovery process. Going into it, I hadn't fully decided if I was going to retire or not. But like once I was just going through the process, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. Like, I'm mentally.
You've gone down this road. You've fought this battle before.
Yeah.
You've already won. You know that you can do it. It's just about it's about valuing the rest of the things in your life.
Yes. No, exactly. And that's what it came down to where like, I wanted to have kids. I was getting married. Like, I wanted to be able to like do whatever I wanted when I'm in my mid 30s and like not have the restriction of like, I can't do that because my knee is completely destroyed. And so once I like was maybe 2 months into my recovery and I could kind of move a little bit because I was non-weight bearing for 8 weeks. And like I started like moving and I was like, yeah, no, this is it. Like I'm retiring. I need to like focus on other things in my life. And
that decision must be hard because you were kind of in an in-between period. Like it would have been, I think it's such a blessing for most people to get to decide that they're done with the sport, because 99% of the people who are professional athletes, they don't get to decide. They either get cut and they're not on a team anymore, or an injury takes them out of it, like you. And you were in between, like you were an injury, but you didn't, like right after the injury, you didn't decide, okay, I'm done. You put your 30 hands up in the air, like, you wore me out. This was like, you had to come to that decision slowly, which must have been hard.
It was not easy. I had my surgery in August and I made the decision like right before Christmas. Wow. I only talked to my now husband about it. He was a great support system. And I'm like very thankful that he was like, whatever you want to do, I support it. If that's continue playing, great. If that's not, okay, great. We'll figure out like your next walk of life. And I just like going through that rehab process, I was just like, my body is just exhausted.
Yeah.
Like I was just mentally and physically just like exhausted from dealing with all of my knee surgeries and like just the emotional roller coasters of my career and like everything that went into it. I just needed to get to a place to where like I wake up and I'm happy and like I can like enjoy what I'm doing and like fully just like immerse myself in it. And like I just felt like I wasn't doing that anymore. And so it was time to just like say goodbye to being the professional athlete, the player, the game that I love and that gave me so much, and find my new love and new passion.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And now I'm got lucky enough to be able to get into coaching at the collegiate level, at the Division I level, and the Power 5 conferences, or I guess Power 4.
Whatever that means anymore. I don't know.
Whatever. Yeah. And like the big conference is, and I fell in love with soccer again, and I fell in love with just like myself again. And like genuinely just like I wake up excited and happy to like go to work and do my job and like get to like help these young women figure out like their next path of life. If that's being a pro, if that's being just like a girl boss in the business world or the medical field or education or like whatever it may be, like I just like get so much joy out of that now, and like being able to just be a support system for them, that I've experienced what they're going through. Like I've done all of it, so like I can be in their corner and like actually fully understand what they're going through. And I think that's an important thing for just female in sports right now, is like having someone that understands what they're going through and like actually can like vouch for what they're dealing with. So like that's been something that I'm really like thankful that I like got to actually like fully submerge and like be a part of now.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you bring so much to the table as a coach, because not only do you have that like incredible knowledge of the game and instinct of the game, but you also have that ability to, like you said, help other people go through the same kind of things that you've gone through, because no team goes through a season unscathed. There's always injuries that happen, and I'm sure you've already experienced them as a coach with other players. So you're obviously very valuable to whatever coaching staff you are on. So I'm just, having known you for like nearly 10 years now, I'm just proud that you got to be, go through all of these challenges and become so much stronger on the backside of it. So I just want to congratulate for that.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to close up, but first off, I want to thank you so very much for being on the show, for being one of the first Athletics Check guests.
I feel honored.
You should.
I do.
But first off, I want to ask you, we talked about that nerd jock ratio, and after contemplating on it, after learning that you're a foodie, that you basically have enough knowledge to be a knee surgeon at this point, what would you say? Would you update that 60-40 ratio at all to any more on the nerd side or any more on the jock side, or do you feel pretty comfortable with that great ratio of 60-40?
Honestly, I think I could lean more towards like the nerd side.
Yeah.
I also have like a black lab puppy, and he's like
Yeah.
my entire world. And like anything I can do with him, I'm doing it. And like we love going on hikes and being outdoors. So like that's a whole nother part of my life that
Yeah.
also was like completely removed from sports in general. And I loved that. So I think I could actually kind of be closer to like almost 50-50, even more, maybe 60-40 the other way.
Cool.
So, but yeah, I do love sports. I love being a coach. I love being an athlete, but there's so much more to life than just being known for a soccer coach, being a professional athlete. Like, I'm a wife now. I'm a dog mom. I'm going to be a mom soon. Like, I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. Like, there's so many more things to my life than just being a part of like the athlete world that now kind of being removed from it that I see and like that I get to actually fully embrace and enjoy. So I think I could actually tilt it more maybe to like the nerd side.
55 nerd, 45 jock?
Kind of, yes.
Very cool. Yeah.
So,
well, I'm glad that we were able to help discover that that very accurate ratio. And it's a spectrum. It can change on day-to-day basis, but it's very cool to have gone through this conversation with you and to be able to, obviously we didn't get into the dog stuff. I know how passionate you are about being a dog mom, but
yes.
One thing I wanted to ask was, any of these girls that you've coached or been around that, at Kansas or Kansas State, did any of them know you from your college days or your pro days? Like, did any of them look up to you? Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Ironically, at KU, one of the girls that plays at KU, she's going to be a senior. I actually had her on her official visit at Nebraska.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Or unofficial. Like I was one of her hosts. I think it was like my junior or senior year. I actually like took her through like a tour and like answered questions and like talked to her and like.
Well, obviously you didn't do a very good job if she chose Kansas over Nebraska.
Well, she lived in Lincoln, Nebraska. She's from Lincoln, so like
she knew Lincoln. She wanted to get out.
She needed some separation, which I felt the same way. I needed separation from Kansas City. I needed to get out. So, but that was kind of like a funny like full circle moment. I'm like, my gosh, you were so little, and then now you are literally here. You're a senior, like So, but and like a lot of the Kansas City girls that were younger when I was older, like knew me and knew who I was. So like that was kind of fun to like be able to like just see them and like hear like, we watched you when you were like playing and like now it's weird that you're my coach now. But like they were amazing. I loved it. So I'm excited to like officially meet all the girls here at K-State. And get
you really are like a Kansas City like hometown hero, because I remember one of the first things that I got to do with you, I got to visit your hometown, but I also got to go to a Kansas City sporting game where they like awarded you something at halftime. What was that?
It's the Kevin Gray Award. So his family, he has 4 daughters. I played with 3 of them, one in college and then 1 club, or 2 in club. He passed away, unfortunately. He had cancer, but he was a big, big icon in like the soccer world in Kansas City. And so Sporting Kansas City partnered with him and they named an award after him. And I luckily got the 2nd annual Kevin Gray Award awarded to me. So yeah, you got to experience.
I did.
You got to experience the Sporting KC match, and then you got fully thrown into me accepting an award at halftime of that game. So
I was a proud friend. I was absolutely a proud friend. Again, Jaycie, thank you so much for being on the show. So, Jaycie, what we're gonna do first off is for those of you who are listening, please stick around if you are a Patreon subscriber, because we're going to run a little Dungeons and Dragons game with Jaycie. She just pulled up an online dice roller for, I'm pretty sure, the first time. And we're gonna run you through just a short little micro adventure, just to give you the feel of what Dungeons and Dragons is like, give you a little bit of a taste tester. But for being on my show, I want to put your jersey in the rafters, like I'm sure it already is in so many different places. But we're not going to choose your sports jersey.
Okay.
I don't know if you had a number that you were attached yourself to, but forget about that.
I have 2 that I was attached to. So
You have 2. Well, you're gonna have 3 now, because
Okay,
what
let's
you're
go.
gonna do is you're gonna roll a D100 for me. It's a 100-sided die. Usually, you just do 2D10. One is a tens place. One is a ones place. And you're going to roll a D100 and determine what jersey number is going to go up in the rafters. Right now, we have 87 and 39 and 44 are taken. So as long as we roll a different number than those 3, then you're going to be good to go.
Okay.
All right. When you're ready,
I'm going to hit it.
do it.
Okay. I got 6.
6 is great. That's a great number right there. 6 is now being risen to the rafters of the Athletics Check Stadium with Ackerman. It says Johnson, but then it says crossed out. Ackerman.
Oh my God. So weird.
The name up on the jersey. And the last thing I'd like you to do as we finish up is, first off, is there anything you'd like to plug? Your social media, go to a Kansas State game. Is there anything you'd like to plug?
Well, if anyone is ever like in a Big 12 area and K-State women's soccer is playing, please DM me on Instagram, Jaycie Johnson 16. My last name is still Johnson on Instagram. I will get
Show
you
up in
tickets.
purple.
Yes, I will get you tickets. Or if you're in Manhattan in the Little Apple, I will happily get you anyone tickets to come to a game and support women's soccer. We have a sick stadium, first off. It's just for soccer, and it's just for the women's team because we don't have a men's team. So come on out. Please message me on Instagram. I will happily get tickets for people. Yeah.
That's a big offer, and I hope my listeners take full advantage of it. JC will absolutely get you in there. We'll see. Hopefully, people aren't like listening to this 3 years down the line or something like that. Anyway, last thing I'd like for you to do is, the show is called Athletics Check. I know you don't totally understand yet what an athletics check is, but I'd love for you to roll a D20 and roll me an athletics check.
All right, D20.
You want a higher number, and we're gonna give you a +3 bonus here.
Is this like, okay? Side note: I've been seeing your Instagram reels of you doing workouts.
Yep.
I'm not gonna have to do a workout, right?
No. You can if you like. You can follow along on the Roll for Gains if you like, but this is just to see how well you rolled for an athletics check for this show.
All right, ready?
Ready.
I got one of my favorite numbers, 16.
16's great, and I give you a +3 modifier. You're going to finish with a 19. 19 is going to get you absolutely another full 4-goal performance.
Hey,
in
19 was my college
game.
number, so
there you go. Well, Jaycie, again, thank you so much. If you are a Patreon subscriber, stick around. If you aren't, please consider following Athletics Check and subscribing on Patreon. But if you are finishing here, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Jaycie, for being on the show. And everyone at home, roll me an Athletics Check. All right, thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to rate it and leave us a review. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else podcasts can be found. Don't forget, we do have a Patreon in which we talk to each of our guests about playing Dungeons & Dragons, and I run them a little adventure. I hope you guys do enjoy that if you are a Patreon subscriber. Audio editing and music by the incredible co-host Travis Reeves. Video production and editing by Frank Janish. And I'm your host, Stanton IV. To find out more about what I do, check out my website, StantonIV.com. This has been an effing funny production. We'll catch you next time, but until then, can you roll me an athletics check?